Pay attention to the man in the blue work jacket walking into the hardware store at 11:47 a.m. His name is Curtis Brennan. He is 39 years old, a licensed electrician, and the father of a 7-year-old girl named Sophia. He is picking up wire strippers and junction boxes for a residential job scheduled that afternoon. Now watch the woman who enters 16 seconds later. She moves quickly through the automatic doors, her phone pressed to her ear. Her name is Nina Caldwell. She is 28, a paralegal at a downtown firm, and she is calling her fiancé to confirm dinner plans for that evening. At 11:49 a.m., both of them are standing at adjacent checkout counters. Nina is still on her phone. Curtis is counting cash from his wallet. Neither of them notices the silver sedan idling in the fire lane outside. Neither of them sees the driver watching through tinted windows. Within 2 hours, both of their phones would be turned off forever. This was not a random encounter. It was the final stage of a plan that had been in motion for 6 days. February 21st, 6 days earlier. Sophia Brennan turned 7 on a Tuesday. Her father surprised her with a treehouse kit. Nothing fancy, just plywood panels and brackets from the same hardware store he frequented for work. Curtis had promised to build it with her over the weekend. That same Tuesday, Nina Caldwell received a voicemail from a blocked number. The message was brief and professional. A law firm in Cleveland needed temporary paralegal support for a high-profile case. The pay was exceptional. Could she drive up for an interview on Monday? Nina was cautious. She Googled the firm name. The website looked legitimate. Partner bios, case results, office photos. She called the main number listed. It rang twice before going to a generic voicemail. She hesitated, but the pay was nearly double her current salary. She saved the voicemail and marked her calendar. February 27th, Monday morning. Curtis Brennan left his house at 7:30 a.m. His daughter was still asleep. His wife, Angela, worked night shifts at the hospital and wouldn't be home until 9. Curtis had 3 jobs lined up that day: a panel replacement in Medina, a lighting install in Fairlawn, and a small troubleshooting call in Cuyahoga Falls. The final job was added last minute. A woman named Marcia Holbrook had called his business line Sunday evening. She explained that her kitchen outlets had stopped working, and she was hosting family that week. Curtis recognized the address, a quiet residential street he'd worked on before. He quoted her a standard service call fee. She agreed immediately. The appointment was set for 1:30 p.m. Nina Caldwell woke at 6 a.m. and spent an hour preparing for the Cleveland interview. She printed extra resumes, ironed a charcoal blazer, and rehearsed answers to anticipated questions. The firm, Callaway and Sterling LLP, had sent detailed directions via email the night before. The office was in a business park off Route 8, about 40 minutes north. She left her apartment in Akron at 10:15 a.m. Traffic was light. She arrived early and decided to stop at a hardware store she noticed on the way. Her kitchen faucet had been dripping for weeks. She figured she could pick up a washer kit while she had time. She pulled into the parking lot at 11:48 a.m. Curtis Brennan was already inside. He'd finished his morning jobs ahead of schedule and decided to grab supplies before the afternoon call. He needed wire strippers. His had gone missing from his truck, and a few junction boxes to restock his kit. At 11:49 a.m., Curtis stood at Register 3, counting out $47 in cash. Nina stood at Register 4, her phone still pressed to her ear. She was talking to her fiancé Garrett, confirming their dinner reservation for 7 o'clock. Outside, in the fire lane, a silver Honda Accord sat with its engine running. The driver wore sunglasses and a black baseball cap. The license plate was obscured by a deliberate smudge of dried mud. At 11:51 a.m., Curtis left the store first. He walked to his white work van parked near the garden center entrance. Nina exited 18 seconds later. She crossed the lot toward her gray Nissan sedan, still finishing her call. The silver Accord pulled forward. 1:30 p.m. The address Curtis arrived at 428 Pinehurst Drive at exactly 1:30 p.m. The house was a modest ranch-style home with beige siding and a detached garage. The lawn was neatly maintained. A silver Honda Accord sat in the driveway. Curtis knocked. No answer. He knocked again and called the number Marcia Holbrook had used. It went straight to a generic voicemail. He tried the doorbell. The door opened. The woman who answered was not Marcia Holbrook. She was younger, maybe mid-30s, with shoulder-length brown hair and a wary expression. She looked at Curtis as if she didn't recognize him. "Can I help you?" she asked. Curtis explained. "Service call. Kitchen outlets. Scheduled for 1:30. The woman shook her head slowly. "I didn't call anyone. I'm just house-sitting." Curtis apologized and began to turn away. Then, the woman reconsidered. "Actually, could you just check the breaker panel? The owner mentioned something about the outlets before she left." Curtis hesitated. He didn't love working without direct authorization from the homeowner, but the job was already on his schedule, and he'd driven 20 minutes. He agreed. The woman, she said her name was Beth, led him inside. The house was quiet and smelled faintly of cleaning products. She gestured toward the basement door. "Panels downstairs. I'll be right here if you need anything." Curtis descended the wooden steps into the basement. It was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed beams, a few storage boxes stacked against the walls. The breaker panel was mounted near the furnace. He opened the panel and scanned the breakers. Nothing looked tripped. He flipped a few switches to test. The lights upstairs remained on. That's when he heard the front door open again. Footsteps, multiple sets, voices. Curtis froze. Nina Caldwell arrived at the business park at 12:35 p.m. The complex was large, 8 or 9 identical beige buildings arranged in a grid. She circled twice before finding Building D, Suite 220. The glass doors were locked. A printed sign taped to the window read, "Callaway and Sterling LLP. Please use rear entrance." Nina walked around the building. The rear entrance was a single metal door with no signage. She knocked. No answer. She tried the handle. It opened. Inside was a narrow hallway, lit by fluorescent panels. The air was stale. Nina called out, "Hello? I'm here for an interview." A door at the end of the hall opened. A man in a dark polo shirt stepped out. He was maybe 40, clean-shaven, with a professional but detached demeanor. "Nina Caldwell?" he asked. "Yes." He gestured her forward. "Come on back. Mr. Callaway is waiting." Nina followed him into a small conference room. It was sparse. Folding table, 3 chairs, a whiteboard on the wall. No plaques, no diplomas, no law books. The man gestured to a chair. Nina sat. Her portfolio rested on her lap. "Mr. Callaway will be right in," the man said. He stepped out and closed the door. Nina waited. 5 minutes passed. Then, 10. She checked her phone. No signal. She stood and tried the door. It didn't open. 2:47 p.m. Pinehurst Drive, Curtis Brennan was still in the basement. He had climbed halfway up the stairs, listening. The voices upstairs had stopped. He heard a television turn on. Then footsteps again. Not in the kitchen, but moving toward the back of the house. He didn't understand what was happening, but every instinct told him something was wrong. He descended the stairs slowly and looked for another exit. There was a small egress window near the ceiling, but it was sealed shut with old paint. No basement door to the outside. Curtis pulled out his phone. No signal. The basement walls were thick concrete. He heard a door close upstairs. Then, silence. He waited 20 minutes. When he finally climbed the stairs and tested the basement door, it opened. The house was empty. The silver Accord was gone. Curtis walked quickly through the first floor. The kitchen was untouched. The living room looked staged. No personal photos, no mail, no signs anyone actually lived there. He left through the front door and got into his van. His hands were shaking. He drove 3 blocks before pulling over and calling 911. The dispatcher asked what the emergency was. Curtis explained. A service call, a house sitter, a locked basement. He wasn't sure if anything had actually happened, but something felt deeply wrong. The dispatcher took the address and told him an officer would meet him there. Curtis drove back to Pinehurst Drive and waited. 3:15 p.m., Building D, Suite 220. Nina Caldwell was pounding on the conference room door. She had been locked inside for over 30 minutes. Her phone still had no signal. She'd tried the window. It didn't open. She'd shouted until her voice went hoarse. Finally, she heard footsteps in the hallway. The door unlocked. The same man in the dark polo shirt stood there, holding a bottle of water. "I'm so sorry," he said calmly. "Doors stick sometimes. Mr. Calloway had an emergency. He can't make it. We'll reschedule." Nina stared at him. "You locked me in here." "The door sticks," he repeated. "Again, I apologize. We'll be in touch." He stepped aside. Nina grabbed her portfolio and pushed past him. She half ran down the hallway and out the rear entrance. Her car was still in the lot. She got in, locked the doors, and drove. She didn't stop until she was back on Route 8, heading south. Only then did she pull over and call Garrett. She was shaking so hard she could barely hold the phone. 4 p.m., Pinehurst Drive 2. Cuyahoga Falls patrol officers arrived at 428 Pinehurst Drive. Curtis Brennan met them in the driveway and explained what had happened. The officers exchanged a glance. They knocked on the front door. No answer. They tried the handle. Locked. One officer walked the perimeter while the other ran the address. The house was owned by a woman named Marcia Holbrook, age 63, currently traveling in Florida. No one was authorized to be inside. The officers decided to make entry. The front door lock was standard residential. It took less than a minute to bypass. They announced themselves and entered. The house was silent. They cleared the first floor. Living room, kitchen, bathroom, 2 bedrooms, all empty. They opened the basement door and called down. No response. One officer descended. The basement was as Curtis had described. Unfinished, sparse, breaker panel near the furnace. Nothing unusual. They regrouped in the kitchen. One officer suggested Curtis had been the victim of a prank or a miscommunication. Maybe Beth was a confused neighbor. Maybe the service call had been a legitimate mistake. Curtis wasn't convinced, but he didn't have evidence of a crime. The officers cleared the scene. Curtis thanked them and left. As he pulled away, one officer remained behind to lock up. He walked through the house one final time, checking windows and doors. That's when he heard it. Footsteps. Above him. The officer froze. He was standing in the main hallway. The ceiling above him was the attic access. He checked the bedrooms. He checked the closets. He hadn't checked the attic. He radioed his partner, who was already back at the patrol car. "I need you inside. Now." The second officer returned. They stood beneath the attic access, a pull-down hatch in the hallway ceiling. There was no ladder. The officer dragged a chair from the kitchen and stood on it. He pushed the hatch upward and shone his flashlight into the darkness. The attic was low-ceilinged and dusty. Boxes, insulation, a small window at the far end, and a person. Nina Caldwell was curled in the far corner of the attic. She was conscious but unresponsive. Her wrists were zip-tied. Her mouth was duct-taped. Her eyes were wide and unfocused. The officers called for EMS and a supervisor. One climbed into the attic and cut the restraints. Nina didn't speak. She didn't move. She just stared. Paramedics arrived within minutes. Nina was removed from the attic and placed on a stretcher. She was shivering uncontrollably despite the warm afternoon. She was transported to Suma Akron City Hospital. The house was immediately secured as a crime scene. 5:30 p.m. The investigation begins. Detective Lydia Brennan, no relation to Curtis, was the lead investigator assigned to the case. She arrived at Pinehurst Drive at 5:45 p.m. and walked the scene with forensic techs already processing the house. The basement showed signs of recent activity, fresh scuff marks on the concrete, a discarded zip tie fragment near the furnace. The attic had been used as a holding space, makeshift restraints, a bucket in the corner. Nina Caldwell had been held there for over 3 hours. Detective Brennan reviewed Curtis Brennan's statement. She noted the timeline. Curtis arrived at 1:30. Nina had been locked in the conference room at approximately 12:45. Curtis left the house around 2:50. Nina was likely moved to the attic between 1:45 and 2:30, while Curtis was still in the basement. The woman named Beth was not the homeowner. The service call had been fabricated. The law firm interview had been fabricated. This was not opportunistic. It was coordinated. February 28th, the patterns emerge. By Tuesday morning, Detective Brennan had assembled a timeline and a list of anomalies. Curtis Brennan's service call had been placed from a burner phone purchased in Cleveland 6 days earlier. Nina Caldwell's interview email had been sent from a spoofed address. The website for Callaway and Sterling LLP was registered 4 days before Nina received the voicemail. The hardware store where both Curtis and Nina were present had been under surveillance. Security footage showed a silver Honda Accord circling the parking lot 3 times between 11:30 and 11:50 a.m. The same silver Accord appeared on traffic cameras near Nina's apartment complex on February 25th. Marcia Holbrook's house had been accessed using a lockbox code, obtained by posing as a real estate agent during her absence. Detective Brennan pulled the hardware store footage and isolated the silver Accord. The license plate was visible in one frame. It had been reported stolen in Akron on February 20th. The investigation expanded. March 3rd. The suspect digital forensics traced the spoofed email and fake website to a public library computer in Barberton. Security footage from the library showed a man in his late 30s using the terminal on February 23rd. He wore a hoodie and kept his head down, but his face was partially visible. Detective Brennan ran the image through facial recognition. No match. She circulated the image to regional law enforcement. On March 5th, a patrol officer in Akron recognized the man. His name was Evan Pritchard, age 37. No prior arrests, but 2 filed and later withdrawn restraining order requests from former romantic partners. He worked as an independent IT contractor. His current address was a rental property in Copley Township. March 6th, the arrest detective Brennan obtained a search warrant. A tactical team executed the warrant at 6 a.m. on March 6th. Evan Pritchard was alone in the house. He was arrested without incident. Inside the home, investigators found a laptop with folders containing surveillance photos of Curtis Brennan, Nina Caldwell, and 4 other individuals, printed maps of residential neighborhoods with handwritten notes, a lockbox key that matched the one used to access Marcia Holbrook's property, receipts for burner phones, zip ties, duct tape, and cleaning supplies, a notebook with detailed timelines and contingency plans. Evan Pritchard was charged with kidnapping, unlawful restraint, stalking, and criminal trespass. March 7th. The interrogation detective Brennan interviewed Pritchard for 4 hours. He was calm and articulate. He acknowledged creating the fake service call and the fake law firm. He admitted to surveilling both Curtis and Nina. When asked why, he offered no clear answer. He described it as an experiment, testing his ability to manipulate real-world scenarios without detection. When pressed about the 4 other individuals in the surveillance folders, Pritchard's lawyer intervened. The interview ended. March 15th, the additional victims. Forensic analysis of Pritchard's laptop revealed correspondence with 3 of the 4 individuals in the surveillance folders. Each had been contacted under false pretenses: job interviews, service appointments, real estate showings. 2 of the individuals confirmed they had attended scheduled meetings that felt off but had left without incident. A third, Caroline Fletcher, a 24-year-old nursing student, had not been seen since February 18th. Detective Brennan obtained a second search warrant for Pritchard's storage unit in Tallmadge. Inside, investigators found Caroline Fletcher's wallet, phone, and car keys. Her vehicle was located 3 days later in a long-term parking lot near Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. Caroline Fletcher's body was discovered on March 22nd in a wooded area off Riverview Road in Peninsula. Cause of death: asphyxiation. April 2026. The trial. Evan Pritchard was charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and multiple counts of stalking and attempted kidnapping. The trial began in Summit County Court in April 2026. The prosecution presented a clear narrative. Pritchard had systematically identified and targeted individuals through online research, fabricated scenarios to isolate them, and tested his ability to abduct without leaving evidence, Nina Caldwell testified. She described the locked conference room, the absence of cell signal, the terror of realizing she was trapped. She described being drugged. Toxicology reports confirmed traces of a sedative in her system, and waking in the attic with no memory of how she'd gotten there, Curtis Brennan testified. He described the fake service call, the woman named Beth, the moment he realized something was wrong. The defense argued that Pritchard suffered from severe social detachment and compulsive behavior stemming from untreated psychological conditions. They did not dispute the facts. They argued diminished capacity. The jury deliberated for 9 hours. Evan Pritchard was convicted on all counts. Sentencing. On June 12, 2026, Evan Pritchard was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Caroline Fletcher. Additional consecutive sentences totaled 65 years for kidnapping and related charges. Nina Caldwell did not attend the sentencing. She released a statement through her attorney. She was grateful to be alive and was focused on rebuilding her sense of safety. Curtis Brennan attended. He sat in the gallery next to Angela and Sophia. When asked by reporters afterward what he wanted people to know, he said simply, "Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is." Aftermath, Nina Caldwell left her paralegal position and moved out of state. She has not spoken publicly about the case since her courtroom testimony. Curtis Brennan completed the treehouse he'd promised his daughter. It sits in their backyard in Cuyahoga Falls, a reminder of a promise kept despite everything. Caroline Fletcher's family established a scholarship fund in her name for nursing students at Kent State University. It has supported 12 students to date. Detective Lydia Brennan continues to work cases in Summit County. The Pritchard investigation remains one of the most methodical and unsettling she has encountered in her career. Marcia Holbrook returned from Florida in March 2026 to find her home had been the site of a crime she never could have anticipated. She sold the property 6 months later. The silver Honda Accord was never recovered. The hardware store on Route 8 still operates. The parking lot looks the same. People come and go, picking up supplies, running errands, making phone calls in checkout lines. Most of them leave without incident. Some do not.